Hey y'all, welcome back to the video. This is habit number 2, and we're talking about begin with the end in mind. And so this is also another habit from the 7 habits of highly effective people. And this is meant for you to start thinking ahead. And the reason it's valuable is because it's going to help you on your self-improvement journey or whatever journey you're on, to start thinking ahead, to use to look for what you value the most, and using that to push yourself forward. And also, number 2, using the art of grand strategy. And so, but first, let's begin with a hypothetical event, your funeral. And let's ask questions that are on here. For example, what kind of husband or father or wife or mother would you want the speakers at your funeral to reflect? What kind of difference would you have to made in their lives? Would you have liked to make in their lives? And what achievements and contributions would you like them to remember about your life and your funeral? And these are questions that are designed for you to start thinking about what you truly value. Like, what am I okay with having in life and not having? Is basically what that's meant for. And so, yeah, habit 2 can be used for that. So the art of grand strategy, and also, what is it called? Thinking ahead. I have a quote, I think up here or somewhere here or here somewhere, that I'm going to put up here, that we're going to put up here. And it's more in detail about what I'm talking about. And I want to dive a little deeper into this idea with the help of another book that I also really recommend, and the 33 Strategies of War. And so basically what it's talking about is the art of grand strategy. And what that means is sometimes we live our life and only worry about each battle, and then like, you know, hypothetically, each battle we worry, and so we're stressing each day about winning this and winning that. And I think it's better to think about in terms of like a campaign, what they call it, which is not just one battle but the whole war. And so don't fall into the trap of just, you know, being a soldier, but start thinking like a general and start planning stuff out. And so that is basically what I'm talking about when I mean grand strategy. And like, for example, there's a lot of examples in history and you know, popular stuff. For example, I could talk about, you know, Doctor Strange. You know, he was willing to give up the stone and lose that battle, and, you know, Thanos won, but in the end of the war, the Avengers won. So he was using grand strategies. He lost a battle, but ultimately that was for winning the war. And he was thinking not just one step ahead, but he was thinking 10 steps ahead. And so that's what I mean by that. And another example is my boy Alexander the Great. He was like the ultimate general. And I think I'm going to put a map here. We're going to put a map of like the whole, where he went and all that. And but I'm gonna give like a brief summary of that and to explain what I mean. And basically, at first he was just a low prince, and then for some reason, you know, his dad died, whether it was assassin or whatever, you know, who cares. And then he became the king of this like smallish territory, and somewhere up in Greece. And then, you know, he has to fight a lot of stuff, and then he has to, not only that, he has to basically make Greece together again, and that's what he does. And after that, there people were wondering what was going to be his next step, and what he did was actually confusing to a lot of people. A lot of people thought he would have just stayed there in Greece and just managed everything out, but no, he had a grand strategy. He had a greater vision, and his plan was actually just to take over Persia. which in nowadays you can like think of it of like the Real Madrid of that current era. You know, it's like the OP team that everyone wants to beat. Okay, so people were like, okay, how are you gonna do that if you have a small kingdom? How are you gonna do that if you don't have that many? Well, he was also a really good general, because in the war, you know, he had a very good tactics and stuff like that. And so I think two important battles that I got here: the Battle of Granicus. So it's like somewhere, I think somewhere, I don't know, but I have a map. And in that battle, the Persians actually didn't take the Greeks very seriously, or the Macedonians is what they call them. And so they just sent, you know, some random, you know, military. But the Greeks proved otherwise, and they won that battle. And so fast forward to the Greeks beating the Persians, then people are like, okay, what's his next step now? And so now that they beat the Persians, the Greeks were very motivated, very confident. So everyone thought that he was just going to take his army right to Persia and to start, you know, winning and start facing them off directly. But no. What he did actually was he went down to Egypt and started to make sure that they were aligned with him, and they became his allied like people. And so what they provided was actually more resources for his army. And so he was thinking like 10 steps ahead. So then he was actually preparing his army to fight for even more. And not only that, and also added the benefit that he became the pharaoh of Egypt for some reason. And so fast forward to them fighting again, and now here we go into the battle of Gaugamela, something like that. Okay, I'm gonna have a picture of it somewhere. And this is like the end fight. This is like the final scene of, you could call it, or like the final of the saga of the Persian king is Darius, and then the Greek king at that time is Alexander the Great. And so these two armies, the most OP army you got at the current era of that era, and then you got Alexander the Great of, you know, he has a motivated army. And so they fight, and ultimately what happens is Alexander the Great wins, and he ultimately, Darius actually flees the battle, and then I think one of his bodyguards kills him, and so Darius is no longer the king of Persia, meaning that Alexander the Great has become the king of Persia, like a respectable funeral by Alexander the Great, which was actually a strategic move, because that actually made him have more favor with the Persian people, and so they were more willing to have him as their king. And so ultimately, what I mean by, you know, going about all this about Alexander the Great is that he managed to not only surprise people in certain in the decisions he was making, but he managed to think 10 steps ahead of what everyone else was thinking that he was going to do, or what everyone else was thinking was the right move. And he was using what I call the art of grand strategy. And so by that, I mean that, you know, you can use these, you know, this sort of thinking ahead instead of just, you know, doing stuff by the day, and make a plan, you know, and actually have a more practical guide right here. So the important thing about all this is start planning like 6 months ahead. Okay, these are the 5 goals I want to have done, and this is how I'm going to do it. You know, break each down, make a plan, and develop a campaign like Alexander the Great. He had a campaign. His campaign was not only to unite Greece. No, it was to take over the Persian Empire and become a greater empire. That was his grand strategy right there. But people didn't see it yet until everything he did. So everything he did led up to that point. And so, like, use this, start, you know, thinking strategically, you know, start planning everything out ahead, and then that way you have a more clear sense of direction of where you're going, and that'll help you out a lot better. So in conclusion, to wrap this up, keep these 2 things in mind. Watch out for these things. All right, maintain a sense of realism. So what I mean by that is don't get an ego inflation when you find yourself getting maybe some victories here and there. Always maintain a practical mindset, and don't become indecisive when you're developing a plan. Like, you have so many options. Okay, what's the perfect route? No, just make a choice and stick with it, and then maybe you'll find out afterwards if it's right or wrong, and you can examine that. But the important thing is to take action. In conclusion as well, so to wrap this up, develop the habit of doing things with the end in mind, and don't let yourself become a soldier/warrior, with no vision. And what I mean by that, is like in a war, there's soldiers and then there's generals, and then the generals are the ones that are planning everything out. And so, just because you're busy doesn't mean you're actually making progress towards your goals. So examine your daily actions and plan out what your end game is. Make sure that these two align as best as they can. And also, if you get a few setbacks, it's okay. People lose in the campaign. You're gonna lose a few battles. You're gonna lose a few. But just keep the end in mind, like what the end game is, and keep going. So thank you guys. That wraps it up. Hopefully this was valuable for you guys, and let me know how it went. Thank you guys. Stay tuned.